Good afternoon, Honorable Governor, members of Cabinet, members of the legislature, fellow Virgin Islanders, good afternoon. No, we got to do better than that. Good afternoon. And a kwaba to our delegation from Ghana, and welcome to the Virgin Islands, your second home. I've been asked to give you an overview of the connections between the Virgin Islands and the country of Ghana. I'd like to start with collective memory. I could say much of that memory of our African connections have died over the centuries, but still are maintained in different ways. The collective memory that's passed from one generation to the next could be exhibited in our foodways, language traditions, spiritual belief systems. A bird flies into the house and your grandmother says, "Get a bird out the house." Or a neighbor comes from down the street and your grandmother really wanted to finish cooking and she said, "Excuse me," and put her broom upside down in the corner. These aspects of collective memory are represented in so many facets of our history and also our traditions. So in our traditions, we pour libation for our ancestors. So we do that today, symbolically. Collective memory is also represented in the stories that we tell, folklore, and various aspects. If you kill Brunancio, if you kill Brunancio, rain don't fall, sun don't shine if you kill Brunancio. If you kill Brunancio, if you kill Brunancio, rain don't fall, sun don't shine if you kill Brunancio. Many of us have had the opportunity during our lifetime to hear storytellers tell us about Brunancy. That were not just stories, but one of really creating a good character in a person, in a human being, not to be greedy, don't steal, love your neighbors, respect your elders. What don't belong to you, leave it alone, put it back, etc. And that's what Sankofa is really about. And as you go through these islands, you will see images of Sankofa. The Sankofa bird is one image, with its head towards its tail, with a golden egg in its mouth, bringing it forward. You don't throw away the baby with the bathwater. So the door of no return is basically what we have been talking about today, because we have returned and we are returning. And various aspects of this is represented in the built environment over the centuries that still stands. 1400s, 1500s, 1600s, 1800s, 17. The Danes were the latecomers to the slave trade. And they were basically the last colonial power to establish plantations and a colony in the West Indies. They also were one of the first to abolish the slave trade, which we date as 1803. And as a result of that 1803, especially African women were imported into the Danish West Indies prior to the abolition of the slave trade, not slavery, slave trade, so that they would have an ample supply, work supply. So we would find, prior to 1803, larger numbers of females, African women, girls, and girls were brought to these islands. We know the Gold Coast. You've heard of it, you've read about it, and the Guinea Coast, which is the entire gray area. And if you look on the map, you'll see various ethnic groups of various nations. And Many of us are now doing our DNA. That DNA provides a vehicle for us to make connections where we were not able to in the past. You would hear, well, I know African. I'm from the French West Indies. My family was Danish. I was Dutch, etc., etc. But what about your African DNA? So many of us now use genealogy, use DNA for our genealogy footprint. And that is reconnecting us to the various ethnic groups that we come from. In that regards, my journey in 1982, as a result of approaching the Department of Education with Professor Gerard Emanuel, we presented a proposal to the Department of Education, then Commissioner of Education, Commissioner Turnbull, former governor. He accepted our proposal, and we did a cultural investigation between Ghana and the US Virgin Islands to look at what, and this is 1982, the Cultural Education Division had been created. And as a result, this material came back to the Cultural Education Division to be used within our schools and curriculum. Started way before our visit. There were many who had traveled independently and visited the Gold Coast, visited Ghana, Senegal, Nigeria, and other countries. But our specific DNA to this place is outstanding. So much so that we don't really fully understand the extent of it. And as a result, these ties, especially this built environment of these slave castles throughout the coast of Africa, and through a question, who are you? What's your identity? That was discussed earlier today. What's your identity? The importance of identity. So, well, I'm a Jackson, Clendenin, Blyden, Watlington, etc., Canton, and that one struck a chord. Canton. I'm a Canton, and I'm from the north. This prompted a visit to the northern part of Ghana, the most northern tip, right before the border of Burkina Faso, to visit an ancestral village of the Canton clan, which has been a 40-year experience for me and my family. The 1733 insurrection goes underrated in the Virgin Islands. And it's for some time now we've been trying to get the Akwamu Hene or the Asante Hene to visit, especially during the month of November, during this annual pilgrimage to Forts Berg, Coral Bay, and to various sites and plantations where our African ancestors struck the chord of independence and liberty. Really the first of such before even Haiti. Haiti gets the recognition, but even if it's 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4, 5, 6 months, we recognize the 7 flags. The British take it from the Dutch one day, the French from the British the next day, and we have these 7 flags flying. But what happened to the Ghanaian flag? Independent, missing. we really need to reevaluate our history. And the governor said he has taken the chain of his oppressors from around his neck. In 2007, we got an invitation from the Minister of Tourism, Minister Lamptey, may he rest in peace, who visited the Virgin Islands and through Shelley Moorhead organized a delegation to go to Ghana for the Emancipation Celebration in 2006 and the launch of the Joseph Project. I think those of you that are familiar with the Bible will know that Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers and became a noble in the Kemetan Egyptian court, and his brothers did not recognize him decades later. That was the beginning of the launch of the Joseph Project that connected us in 2007 to this history of emancipation around the same time that we celebrate emancipation in the Virgin Islands. More recently, the 2020 Year of Return and special programs between the National Park Service, like the slave ship close to Buck Island, and the work that's been doing between archaeologists, historians, Crucians, and others to document this slave ship. And also scholars into the territory. So last year we had 2 scholars visiting, one from the Castle of Osu and the other an archaeologist from the community of Osu doing work in there. In our visit to Ghana in 2007, we left commemorative images and memory. One was a turn stick. You know what a turn stick is? What do you do with it? You turn what? Fungi, exactly. And it's marked USVI Ghana Emancipation Commemoration 2006. And we left a Danish plate that was commissioned for Fort Christian. Today, we have Virgin Islanders going on an annual basis over the decades, so I should say at least over the last 50 years or more, independently, and now this activity that we are here, this conference, this summit, where we are making new ties, renewed ties with our homeland. Some of you may know of one of the first black missionaries from St. Thomas, Danish West Indies, who was born in Antigua, came here, became a free woman of color, married a Moravian pastor, missionary, and was imprisoned in Fort Christian because they did not permit mixed race. She was taken out of prison by Count Zindendorf, who gave shelter to the Moravians, and she started a school in Ghana for children of mixed race and Africans. This connection is also tied, we just recently lost Larry Sewer, who always talked about his connections to Ghana through the Sewer family. Sewer in St. John, Sewer in Ghana. And these are images of that, and through the works of the legislature in acknowledging African Liberation Day and African Heritage Week, we have done programs that really celebrate this connection. Eyewitness accounts by Isadore Paiwanski that speaks to this trade in human beings, and the first documented slave ship to St. Thomas was 1673. The purchase of St. Croix in 1733, and the division of plantations, that is the landscape, jealousy, whim. Name some of them. Upper Love, Lower Love, LaGrange. We could go on and on and on. and the establishment of the town of Frederiksted and Christiansted. Rum production provides us a vehicle for this history, cultivation of sugar, and the production of rum that is still produced in these islands. There are acts of self-determination through our demands for freedom from slavery, provides us with a continuity that goes back to our homeland, Africa, because the Aquamoos had taken over the Danish fort on the coast in Osu and took the keys and sold it back to the Danes. Many of you pass this monument every day. Do you give it any thought, what it really represents? This project was executed by Attorney Wayne James, former Senator of St. Croix, Homebound Foundation, 1999-2000, where a monument was taken to the depths of the Atlantic Ocean in memory of our ancestors. Our recent celebration of the 175th Emancipation celebration in the islands, and the efforts to also tell the story through Queen Mary and the Freedom Statue commissioned by Governor Snyder and put on St. John's, St. Thomas, and St. Croix as a commemorative for the 150th, and most recently, one that sits in Copenhagen's harbor. The Queens, oh, we know about Queens. Our society is matriarchal, and women, our mothers and grandmothers, played a significant part in shaping the history and the culture and our acts for liberation. The father of the Pan-African movement, Edward Wilmot Blyden, was born in St. Thomas in 1832, left St. Thomas Harbor in 1850 and went to New York, denied entry into Rutgers Seminary, not because he was not qualified, but the color of his skin. And through efforts by those who supported the abolition of slavery, he was encouraged to go to Liberia and became president of the Liberian College and ran for president of Liberia. In his travels, he said, I felt that I had a particular heritage in the Grand Pyramids built with the help of the enterprising sons of Ham, from whom I have descended. The blood seems to flow faster in my veins. I seem to hear the echo of those illustrious Africans. Could my voice have reached every African in the world, I would have earnestly addressed him, be proud of your heritage. So, through efforts of private, nonprofit entities, various aspects of our history is celebrated. The 1892 Queen Kasaya, coal workers strike, Bambula, and the work that we're doing with our young people in various schools in the territory. The marketplace where women dominate and have always dominated. Our foodways, that Kalaloo Bush, Kren Kren, Papa Lolo, Whitey Mary, etc. Ton Fungi. The arts and the crafts that have survived through these experiences, and the really true meaning of what a queen mother is and its roots. Our foodways, that ton fungi and okra, boiled fish, fried fish, peas and rice, beignet, fritters, and the aspects of celebrating this Creole culture that has been forged over the last several hundred years. Sankofa.
All right, now we'll have the CEO of the Virgin Islands Economic Development Authority, Mr. Wayne Biggs, Jr., with some remarks.
Good afternoon, everyone. Protocol having been established already. I want to talk just a little about the U.S. Virgin Islands Economic Development Authority. And it's a pleasure really to co-host this event between the U.S. Virgin Islands and the African delegation. I know we're saying Ghana, but I know there are a couple of people from Nigeria, so I'll refer to it as the African delegation. So the U.S. Virgin Islands Economic Development Authority is the entity that's really tasked and mandated with developing the economy here in the territory. And it was a pleasure to be on the Ghana trip with the governor in reference to creating a point of contact between Ghana and the U.S. Virgin Islands. So why the U.S. Virgin Islands and why we've been promoting the U.S. Virgin Islands? There are several reasons for us doing these promotions. We have a highly skilled and talented workforce. We have a fantastic quality of life. Of course, we have a very supportive business environment, which includes special tax incentives for a variety of different businesses in a variety of different categories that can assist the business in growing and developing here in the territory. We have access to global market. If you look at the position of the Virgin Islands, particularly St. Thomas and St. Croix in particular, we sit sort of in the middle of the Caribbean chain. So within 1,200 miles, you can get to South America. 1,100 miles, you're in Central America. And about 1,400 miles, you're in North America. So we're positioned perfectly in reference to creating trade throughout the Caribbean and throughout the Americas. Also, as the governor indicated, we have a very unique position where we're the United States, but we have a Caribbean flair as a result of being a Caribbean island. And of course, we have a region leading in infrastructure and continuing to develop. The governor spoke last night in reference to the billions of dollars in reference to projects that we have available and that will be constructed over the next couple of years. So the territory is going to look completely different than it does in the next few years than it does today. Again, as we talk about strategically located, you can see on this map here where the U.S. Virgin Islands is. And like I said, very close to many, many markets. There are about 84 million consumers just in the Caribbean area. And then if you go again to South America, Central America, significantly more. So if you're positioned as an entity in the Virgin Islands and you're looking at Caribbean markets or Latin American markets, you still have the protection of the U.S. government. Of course, all the U.S. laws and your intellectual property is also protected by U.S. laws. We have modern infrastructure, 2 international airports, numerous cargo and ferry ports. We have on St. Croix what we call the South Shore Trade Zone. And the South Shore Trade Zone is in an area that includes all the private cargo and delivery entities, but also the airport, the container port in that area. So I know some of you are going to go on a trip tomorrow in reference to the ports. Stephen spoke a little bit about his project earlier today in reference to what he's working on in reference to creating the diaspora link between Africa and the United States. Here, as he indicated, because of the cabling that lands on St. Croix, we have great internet speed, great internet bandwidth. They indicate that the only entity that has more bandwidth in this region than us is New York City. And that's, again, as a result of all the cables landing in St. Croix for maintenance. So Perfect place to work on the diaspora link and develop that diaspora link and create this link between the Caribbean and Africa. And of course, we have a range of different assets that also can support entities that are coming here. We have 2 industrial parks that we work on. The Virgin Islands Industrial Park is located in the subbase here, right above the container port. So within a mile, you're at the container port. A mile, you're at the airport. So very easy to move products in and out. And then the William D. Roebuck Industrial Park is located in the free trade zone area. So again, within 2 miles, you're at the container port. We actually sit adjacent to the runway at the airport and all the other facilities that are there. And then if you want to use the post office is about a mile away also. We have an accredited university with 2 campuses, 1 campus here on St. Thomas and 1 campus on St. Croix, and they do a slew of different degrees, and they have partnerships with other mainland universities. So the governor mentioned last night also for residents of the territory, there's free tuition as a result of bills that were passed by our legislature and the lieutenant governor. The size of our workforce is roughly about 41,000 individuals. So we have a very knowledgeable workforce that can do a variety of different jobs. A big part of what we do in reference to attracting companies here in the territory is we can provide tax incentives to actually reduce your income tax liabilities. And we say it's actually federal income tax liabilities because we use what's called a MIRO system. It's congressionally approved, IRS tested, and what you do is a straight reduction in 90% of your taxes for qualifying entities. So you get a 90% on your tax obligation as a corporate entity. If you're a bona fide resident of the territory and has pass-through income, we can reduce that income also by 90%. So it gives you the opportunity to reinvest in your business or do other things. But we also reduce your gross receipt tax by 100%. For property that's used in the operation, that's reduced by 100%. And then for excise tax, which is an import tax, that's reduced 100%. And then our foreign customs duty tax is reduced from 6% to 1%. So there's a great way in reference to significantly reducing your tax liabilities and providing additional cash flow that you can reinvest in your business. I talked a little bit about our airports on St. Croix. There is a 10,000 foot runway. So the largest of aircraft can land on St. Croix. Both the Cyril King Airport here on St. Thomas and the Henry Wilson Airport in St. Croix are both international airports with a variety of different airlines and nonstop flights from a variety of different locations. Also, our ports have a 30-foot draft, so that allows for significant vessels to come in and out. Many of the mega ships that do oil transportation come into the port over in St. Croix. Our tax exemptions run from 20 years to 30 years, depending which district you're on. If you're in the St. Croix, St. Thomas district, it's a 20-year plan. If you're in the St. Croix district, it's 30 years. So we invest with you and we give you a long term because we want you to be successful and we want you to grow, but we want to grow along with you. So in exchange for our tax incentives, there are some commitments you have to make in reference to investment and employment. So it is an investment and employment program, but it also allows us to develop, continue to develop our skilled workforce. Other programs we have what's called the Hotel Development Program. And with the Hotel Development Program, what we do is we rebate back the occupancy tax or a specialized tax called the Economic Recovery Fee. And that can go up to 20% in reference to rebating back to you to liquidate some of the debt that you incurred while developing that particular project. You can also stack it with the EDC program that I spoke about earlier, so you can get the rebate on the front end in regard to developing the project, and then as you're profitable, you can get the 90% tax reduction. So again, significant amount of tax savings and also liquid cash to put back into projects. We do a film and music that we call STARS, which is a sustainable tourism through art-based revenue streams. And again, we provide tax incentives for film and music development here in the territory. And then also we do tax increment financing, which allows you to create horizontal infrastructure, and we rebate back the difference in the property tax increases as a result of creating that horizontal infrastructure for projects. Living in the Virgin Islands, of course, many of us who are left here in the audience are Virgin Islanders, so we know there's very rich culture. Senator Marion Jackson spoke a little bit about the culture and the history. Of course, there's always that feel of community here, whether you're on St. Croix or on St. Thomas or St. John. And of course, there's year-round outdoor recreation as a result of the beautiful weather that we have here in the territory. Again, I just wanted to do a very brief introduction, but feel free to call us. We have a table in the back that you're welcome to stop and get some additional information from. And we also run the Made in the U.S. Virgin Islands that Ms. Marchena Ken and Ms. Benjamin is back behind the desk. So we're here to support and develop the economy. And again, we want to continue to grow. We talked a little bit about the digital economy. And we are also working with the banking board in reference to looking at potentially stable coins and how do we develop a stable coin market, particularly with the African diaspora. So we are looking forward to continuing to grow this relationship and develop closer contacts with the continent of Africa. Thank you all, and feel free to call us if there's any questions you have. You can send us an email, and we're happy to respond to that particular email. But you're free to visit us in the back this afternoon also. Thank you, Sheldon.
Mr. Wayne Biggs, CEO of the U.S. Virgin Islands Economic Development Authority. Now we'd like to welcome to the podium the Commissioner of the Department of Property and Procurement, Ms. Lisa Alejandro.
Good afternoon, everyone. Also adopting the protocol that was established previously, I first want to welcome our delegation here today. Can we just give them a round of applause? Thank you so much for your interest in investing in our territory. I am Lisa Alejandro. I am the Commissioner of the Department of Property and Procurement. It is the department that has the responsibility and oversight of acquisition in all of the government's goods and services. With that being said, as with every state government or territory, we are the biggest and largest buyer here in this territory. So it is safe to say that your investment in this territory, although we may seem small, we have very big pond. Our bids and our partnership has grown exponentially over the past 8 years after we particularly online or onboard our electronic procurement system. The Department of Property and Procurement, DPP as we call it, manages all of the government purchases, all of their needs particularly. We may not be involved in the professional services as they lay them out based on thresholds. We have just updated our legislative values so that we've empowered our commissioners and department to conduct purchases. In addition to that, we utilize a various sort of acquisition methods. One called the RFP process, which is the request for proposals, which we utilize for professional services, design build type of services. We also utilize the invitation for bids process, as well as the request for qualifications process. So it's important when doing business with the government that you understand the methodologies so that you would be a successful candidate at the end of the process. vendor registration is very important. So to begin the engagement and to begin working within the territory, your first step in becoming successful or being at the end of the award process is to ensure that you register with the government's e-procurement system, which is, we call it GVI BUY, Government of the Virgin Islands BUY. This is where you maintain your profiles, and under the GVI BUY system, we empower vendors to utilize that system to register the specific commodities that your companies offers. And we will talk about a little bit about the benefit of being able as a company and as you grow to be able to update those commodities. So the first thing you need to do is to ensure your eligibility with the federal government. As you know, the government of the Virgin Islands also is a recipient of a large sum of federal funds. And in order to be eligible to win a contract with the government, one must be registered with the SAMS.gov registration and remain in good standing. You must also hold a valid business license, and at the end of the slide, we're going to share with you a list of agencies and their contact information. You must also ensure that you are in good standing with your taxes, etc., and all legal requirements. Without completing the vendor management or without registering your company with the government of the Virgin Islands, unfortunately, you will not be able to enter into any contractual agreements or even bid on a government contract. And we will provide you with the information with regards to GVI BUY. We have a dynamic vendor management team who also assists vendors in managing your profiles, as well as provide assistance in acquiring SAMS.gov registration. Finding and responding to contract opportunities determines whether or not you will be able, at the end of the process, to walk away as the successful awardee. Once registered in GVI BUY, all bids and requests, and we talked a little bit about the benefits of being registered within the system. Once you are registered within the GVI BUY system, you have access to all acquisitions, all opportunities across the territory. In addition to that, being a registered vendor within the system allows you to receive automatic notifications when an opportunity that the government may have at the table is being solicited. In other words, you will get those automatic notations saying your company was registered based on this commodity type, and here is an offering that you may be interested in. So you would not be required to search the internet, to search our website, make phone calls. An automatic notification will notify you that there's an opportunity pending with the government of the Virgin Islands. You may have interest. It's also important, once you receive those notifications and there is an interest to be successful, again, it's important that you submit all required documents, as simple as they may seem. If the requesting document, which again we spoke about, which is the RFP, an IFB, or an RFQ, ask for it, provide it. You must ensure to follow all of the instructions within the bid. Meet those deadlines is paramount, again, to being at the table, and ensure that all of your documents, corporate documents, your licensing is current within the system. Another benefit of the GVI BUY system is that the vendor management team notify vendors and advise them that, hey, you have a good standing certificate that is expiring. You may have a construction license that is expiring. So you also get those notifications from our vendor management team advising that those documents should be updated and submitted. Preparing for the competitive proposal, again, will set you apart in the competitive pool. When I talked about our GVI buy system growing exponentially, bidders understood, quite frankly, their ability to get government contracts. It's determined upon their ability to be a vendor within our system and in good standing. And so a strong proposal must, in fact, answer all of the questions and the requirements within the proposing document. You must ensure, again, that doesn't matter how irrelevant it may seem, it may be the difference between you walking away disqualified or the successful bidder on any government contract. Again, we place very strong emphasis on transparency. And we know there have been a lot of noise and chatter in the public, online, papers, and those resources. However, the government of the Virgin Islands Department of Property and Procurement, through the GVI buy system, is very transparent. Bidders or the community can go online, our website, GVI buy. You can see bids that were awarded, the amount the bids were awarded for, when the bids took place, all the information with regards to that particular solicitation can be sourced online on our GVI buy platform. That's transparency, and of course, we uphold ethical conduct. We take it very, very seriously. We ensure that our processes may at times appear to be lengthy, but it is because our team is, they are professionals at what they do, and they want to ensure that the time that you have placed to submit your bid to the government, your time and resources is taken very seriously, and to position you, again, to be a successful bidder, all right? So we do appreciate all of our vendors within this community because competition is the hallmark of procurement. Stay ahead of the competition. It's important to stay ahead of the competition. The government of the Virgin Islands, through the legislature as well, approved what is called the preferred bidders status. In addition to being a preferred bidder, thank you to Senator Jackson. Thank you, sir. To be a preferred bidder, there are a few criteria which allows us to become a vendor, to become a successful bidder and preferred bidder. There are some perks that preferred bidders has. It means that you have performed your work in good standing. You have conducted and stood upon ethical conduct. You have delivered all that is required under your contracts. Why is that important? That is important because that too as well would determine whether or not you are successful in future or subsequent opportunities. Why? It is a technical rating factor on all of our professional services that are solicited, whether or not you performed and delivered the services in accordance to the terms and conditions of those contracts. So again, being a preferred bidder has its benefit. You may be awarded a bid if you are a preferred bidder over a higher bidding candidate. So again, there are percentage and thresholds that you may be able to benefit from if you remain a bidder in good standing. Agency contacts. So again, because you are required to provide corporate documentation, we wanted to share with you a couple of the agencies that you will have to visit to acquire some of those documents. Again, those agencies is the Department of Property and Procurement. That's for submitting your bids. In addition to the Department of Licensing and Consumer Affairs, and that department, again, is responsible for issuing business licenses. Without a business license, you will not be able to be awarded any government contract. So you must be registered locally. There are a few exemptions on the professional side of procurement that may exempt you. But for the most part, you must be registered in the Virgin Islands. You must also visit the office of the Lieutenant Governor. There are certain legal documents that you will be required to provide the vendor management team and as well as our procurement team when it comes to contracting with the government. Last but not least, of course, everybody is familiar with the Bureau of Internal Revenue. It's important, again, that we're up to date on our taxes. And I want to say that being not at all compliant with one agency will affect your ability to acquire any of the other documents that are necessary to do business with the government of the Virgin Islands. Again, we want to thank you. We want to thank you for your interest in doing business in the territory. Like I said, we may be a small fish, but we appear to be, but we do great and big things. So as we continue to build our infrastructure, work with the Department of Tourism, our disaster recovery offices, there are major opportunities. Once again, we thank you. At the end of this presentation, the QR code will be at the back of the room so that you may be able to scan today's presentation. And you would have all of the contacts you need, again, to begin the good work. So thank you very much. Good afternoon and welcome again.
Ms. Lisa Alejandro, Commissioner of Property and Procurement. And if it takes a little while when I say Alejandro, it's because I didn't grow up calling her Alejandro. So it took a few years for me to realize who they were talking about at Property and Procurement, because I always know as Lisa Henry. You know, so people would say, yeah, I realize you got married, but you know, giving these guys the time to set up. Our next thing up is a panel discussion. I'm leaving you know, right, that the Property and Procurement, and she said it's very specific, very professional, and sometimes could be seen as arduous, but it's definitely something that is needed. And you saw Mr. Biggs in the back there for the EDA. I actually have a radio station, and I got my footing for the radio station, my initial loan for the stations. I have 2 studios in St. Croix and St. Thomas, came from EDA. So just letting you know, for everyone else out there, they really do perform and you can get it done. I paid it every month on time and have cleared it now for about 8 years. So definitely need all 3. You need all 3. You need all 3. Oh, can you go right ahead? I'm burning time for you to fix it up. Yeah, this is only just filling time as we go. I ain't gonna tell them anything about my run being from Wrong the Field. I ain't gonna tell them about Senator Novell Francis walking with the vibe. I ain't gonna tell you about Senator Avery Lewis. We don't call him the Dean. So just filling time. But now what we like to do, we're gonna have our panel discussion. Our moderator is Miss Adrienne Williams Octolin. She stepped up. I was just watching in the direction she was, and she's not there. Okay, well, I don't sing and dance. So we'll give her a few moments for her. Thank you very much, Nadine, to track her down. In the back of the room, of course, you'll find stuff from the Made in the USVI store. If you've never been to it on St. Thomas or St. Croix or St. John, you can always stop on by back there. You ever had stew salmon? If we were talking to you, ever had stew salmon? If you're in St. Croix, it's tambran. If you're in St. Thomas, it's tamon. Sometimes it's tamarind. But all of them is the same thing. Okay? I remember my first time way back as a little boy, I was watching Mutual of Omaha, Wild Kingdom. And that's to tell you how old that picture was. And I saw in one of the African plains, I can't tell you where it was, but it showed some monkeys eating some salmon. Some big, and my mouth begin to water. So definitely something that I think we all enjoy. So now let's welcome our moderator, Miss Adrienne Williams Octalin. And the panel discussion that we're having is how to land projects in the Virgin Islands, diaspora to deals. And our panel, I'll let you announce those. All right, our panel, Ms. Lisa Alejandro. Actually, I just tell you stay on stage. Again, from the Property and Procurement, Mr. James Bruce, Executive Director of Access Bank, and Lindsay Askew, Chief Business Development Officer. Thank you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're missing a panelist? Oh. Coming. Come on down. Good afternoon. Lisa, I go borrow your program so I don't forget your name. Thank you. First mention, I'm Adrienne Williams Octalin, Director for the Office of Disaster Recovery, and I am indeed proud to be a part of this discussion here today. It's pretty much what we feel will be shaping the community for another 10 to 15 years. There is so much opportunity that will be here because of the investment and infusion of the federal dollars, right, and additional dollars that come as new initiatives arrive. We're at a point now we have $24 billion that we have to spend to be able to revitalize and create a resilient community, along with a number of, that's just portions of the federal funding, but there's so much additional money that is here and will be coming in support of this rebuild effort and all of the other initiatives that we have. So we are really pleased to have today with us our panelists. We're gonna, when there's money, then you need businesses to be able to spend that money. And we have with us three varying perspectives, but perspective, of course, that will work together to talk about how do you spend, how do you do business here in the Virgin Islands? You know, the Governor Bryan has always gone out of his way to let everyone know that the Virgin Islands is open for business. And a lot of processes and a lot of opportunities and initiatives have been put together so that we can get more businesses here and businesses can have an ease in being able to conduct and make money here in the Virgin Islands. So I'm going to have all of my panelists today to introduce themselves and just give you a quick background of who they are and the perspective that they will share here today. And I'll start on my right with Commissioner Alejandro.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon again. Lisa Alejandro, Commissioner of the Department of Property and Procurement. Today's perspective from the government side will be on the processes, procedures, or any questions that may be posed with regards to how do I land a contract, how do I land a contract with the government of the Virgin Islands and stay current, and if there's any benefits to contractors doing business with the government.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is James Bruce. I'm an Executive Director of Access Bank Ghana, which is part of the Access Corporation, which is a Pan-African bank headquartered out of Nigeria with almost 44 other locations across. I think my perspective here is how do we convert all these funds into bankable projects that will not just be financed by the government of the Virgin Islands, but also by development banks, export credit, and also ways to get to take out the performance risk of the contractors that you'll be employing to do this work. So you know you're going to get value for money. So that's the perspective I hope to bring today. Thanks.
Excellent, thank you. And Lindsay?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Lindsay Askew, Chief Business Development Officer. My background is business development. Been in the territory working for about 6 or 7 years on the disaster recovery effort. My perspective will be how private entities and businesses prepare themselves for pursuing government contracts and preparing themselves for marketing and bidding on RFPs.
Okay. All right. And you see how they work hand in hand. You have the government, you have the financier, and we actually have the business perspective here. So I'm going to pose this to all of you. What are some of the challenges that you see companies face when they are interested in doing business? And first part of that question is just in general, and 2, here in the Virgin Islands. Yes. Lindsay, we'll start with you.
Absolutely. Good question, and thank you for that, Director. The challenges are many. One, you have to, if you're starting as a new entity, you have to make sure you have the qualifications to pursue the work that you're looking for. So that, I'm sorry, thank you. Qualifications, align your qualifications and align them with your capabilities and align that with the work you're trying to pursue. So that's the sort of the first thing that you need to do if you're trying to pursue government work, because they're really big on past performances. That's a key, I'll call it a key indicator of your readiness to perform the work. So as a business development professional, we can do that through either past performance of the corporation or the people that we hire to put on the projects. So that's sort of a big key thing to do as you prepare yourself. And another is the the ability to produce an RFP. I think you heard Ms. Alejandro mention, Lisa, sorry, thank you, mentioned that RFPs have requirements. They have specifications in the way that you need to respond to them. And it sounds maybe a bit mundane and overbearing, but what it does from the review perspective is allow the reviewer to compare apples to apples as you lay out your proposal. And you don't want to have something in the wrong place and maybe lose points because it wasn't recognized or counted in your response. So having the ability to really be able to respond to an RFP is key, and it's largely organization and making sure you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's before you make that final submission.
I think also just to add to that, you would have instances where you would have to collaborate. So I don't think there's any harm in a small operator who has the ability to deliver a contract to partner with a large operator. And then 2 things happen there. 1, skills are passed, capacity is passed, and you have the ability then to add on to your body of work. So you could go by yourself, or you could find collaborators from within the market, outside the market, around the islands as well, or anybody who's done this work before. And together you could do a JV and get the work done.
Yes. So I'm glad you said that, because Lindsay said you have to have experience. But if I'm a business owner and I want to get into the government and I don't have a whole lot of experience, how do you said partnership, and Commissioner Alejandro, can you also just add on that? How do you get involved in doing business when you may not have a lot of experience? You have the capabilities. How do you demonstrate that you have the experience enough to be able to be successful?
Thank you. So we recommend, again, to vendors, suppliers, especially when we're utilizing federal funds and local funds alike, one of the highest rated criteria is past performance. On a federal government contract, especially past performance, you have to have that. So what we do recommend to new companies coming up, get involved in the private sector. When you get involved in the private sector or just complete work within the territory, then forge those relationships so that at the end of the day, these same customers that have provided the services for you can provide a response to your request to do business with the government, or references, very strong references. But it's about doing the job, completing the job, and doing it satisfactorily, and provide those documentations when you're ready to bid with the government.
Okay, thank you for that from all perspectives. And when we talk about getting into doing business with the government, or typically larger contracts, you do need bonding. You know, that has been a challenge. And let's talk about ways that you can suggest that small contractors, or just contractors in general, medium-sized contractors, because now we're talking about big projects, $300, $400, $500 million. In the Rebuild USVI, we issued solicitations that could value up to $1 billion. So if you are here, you're a company that's been established for a long time, or maybe you're a new company starting out and you're trying to get the opportunities that are presenting itself here in the Virgin Islands, and regarding bonding, what should you do? I'm going to start in the middle with the financing, of course, and then we can take it to each side.
I think the quickest way is always to talk to your bankers. And when I say talk to your bankers, I don't mean just your bankers that you have a relationship with, because there are various ways of providing comfort when you are in the contracting business. There are insurance guarantees. If you work with your bankers or your banks, they can negotiate for insurance guarantees all over. We have Millennium Mega Guarantee, which is U.S. government backed. You could get that. We have other guarantees from other. IFC gives guarantees all the way down to development banks. Afri-Exim, I don't know whether the Caribbean has a development bank, I need to check. But those are the kind of guarantees that give comfort. And obviously those guarantees are conditional. But it starts with banks coming together and approaching these guys to give you the kind of guarantees that cover the large-scale projects you're looking for.
Okay.
And there are structures that can be creative where it's not the full guarantee for the full amount of the project, but you go a stage by stage where it's a performance-based guarantee. So you raise for a stage one, funding is given to you, the guarantee keeps reducing till you finish that stage, you raise a certificate, then you go for the second stage.
So you're saying that the bonding will be on phases rather than bonding the entire project?
Yeah, so you can bond for the bid, which is different for time wasters get out. Then you have your advance payment, you have your warranty and your retention. And then, so there are various instruments you can use dependent on who the financing parties are and how deep their knowledge pool is.
Okay. And Commissioner Alejandro, I know that that there are requirements for federal projects, but given what we've just heard from Mr. Bruce, now you got to take your Department of Property and Procurement hat, not completely off, but just tilt it to the side a little bit, and share any ideas on how or what you wish that you could put together so that our smaller contractors or even medium-sized contractors can be able to phase projects, bonding. You know, what would the territory have to do? What would banks here have to do in order to have some of that creativity flowing?
So I would say to that, first of all, I would, get bidders involved in looking for opportunities and perhaps even subbing. That's first. Okay. Not looking at the big picture, but looking at opportunities where, number one, I know my commodity, I know my capacity, and I'm able to subcontract under a larger contractor that I don't have to put those bonding requirements up. That's one. I think secondly, because we are the Department of Property and Procurement, we procure based on what the agency's needs are and how soon those services has to be expedited. So I would love to see the ability for us to be able to phase projects, break them out, that smaller contractors can have a piece of the pie. But again, that is based on the need and the time frame of the requesting agency, and for the most part, some use federal funds, which of course have liquidation periods.
Right.
So that is a concern as well. But definitely, if we can look at dividing scopes of work so that we can make multiple awards, allowing more bidders at the table, I think that would be a really good approach and it would help. I also encourage our local contractors, if you're not on it, get on the Department of Public Works DBA listing, disadvantaged bidder, listing for those of you that perform services. That's another way to, again, introduce yourself to the market and get opportunities on smaller bids.
All right, thank you. I see, yes, Senator Jackson was giving you applause. And she was able to tip her, be creative and tip her commissioner hat. We applaud you. So, Lindsay, you are representing all of the contractors in the Virgin Islands and anywhere else as far all the way to Africa.
That's right.
What would you like to see happen here in the Virgin Islands that would be creating more opportunity, shifts, strategies that we can help to make it easier for us to meet all of the funding requirements, but still attract businesses here to the territory?
Thanks for that question. I would like to see more contracting vehicles. Right now, it's sort of the RFP process. If we could have other contracting vehicles that would create maybe a pool of pre-qualified vendors that could then be targeted for opportunities, shorten the procurement cycle. Those things would really be great, and it would also allow those pre-qualified companies to market, and then for the agencies that they're marketing to, there'll be a way to procure services. Right now, if I would go market an opportunity or a solution to an agency, it may be great. They may be ready to do it, but it has to go out to RFP. Then it becomes a competitive bid, which they should be a competitive bid. But it goes through that process. And if we're talking maybe technology, by the time it gets to the end of that process, the technology has changed, the cost has changed, the needs have changed. So I would like to see something creative in the contracting vehicle arena that allowed a quicker procurement and ability to capitalize on specialties in marketing that we do to agencies.
Okay. Yes. Well, that was quick. Sure, jump right in.
If I may, great point. And the department has actually begun that process, rolling out, especially with our new gasoline. That is one of the things we are pre-qualifying bidders. We're also doing it with some of our commodities. Whereas we would choose this vendor and this vendor, we realize that oftentimes they cannot meet the government's overall need. So we've begun that pre-qualifying of contractors so that our agencies will be able to purchase from a marketplace. So we have begun that process, and we will be rolling out the marketplace as well in GVI Buy.
Excellent.
All right. And, I'm going to go back. Let's talk about financing, and not only just financing the overall project, but there are a lot of business or potential business owners with great ideas. I fix houses, I do a little bit of construction, and I really want to get my construction business started. What advice, what suggestions do you have for someone who wants to take right now would just be a job, into being an entrepreneur?
Okay. I think the first thing you have to be clear about is where you want to position your business, number one. What's your direction and who would get you there? So I'll give examples from my practice of over 25 years. So in Ghana, we have mining as a dominant business that's very capital intensive. And traditionally, you have Anglo-American, Newmont, I'm talking Dow Jones Industrial Average players in there. A typical mine costs about $1 billion in capital outlay. But the local players decided they could come together and just supply their equipment. And then went back to the big mines and said, okay, can we take the capex off your balance sheet and then we'll supply it? Then, so they have a contract for a large miner, say 600 million. Then they go to Caterpillar. We have this contract, this mine will pay us. Can you give us credit? So 4 or 5 players will be holding the contract for 600 million. Caterpillar is giving them the product literally through their banks. The mine is comfortable because it's brand new Caterpillar equipment. It's under a service warranty. And essentially 4 players then start building capacity after they've executed 2 or 3 contracts. So it's innovation and creativity, number 1. 2, collaboration. 3, SMEs or entrepreneurs have to go through a form of training where they understand where their money comes from. What's cash flow, what is profit. You cannot use, the basic rules.
Yes.
If you can't manage your own money, nobody will give you money.
So you mean I can't take out some, if I want a ring, I can't take it out to business?
No,
No?
unless it's part of your salary, no.
No.
And as an entrepreneur, you should be giving yourself a salary at the end of the month and quantifying how much your value is to the business. That's the only way you know whether you're doing well or you're not doing well. So basic rules, capacity building, which banks and development finance institutions do, but most importantly, collaboration, forming associations of like-minded individuals and pitching for certain jobs and deciding that certain jobs will not go out or that will face, as a united force, other companies from outside and collaborate with them. So the instances where we're concluding a contract in Ghana for a bridge project, which is about $600 million, funded by the Japanese government, with a Japanese contractor. But 80% of the subcontracting is going to Ghanaian players. So yes, $600 million of Japanese aid money may come into Ghana, but at least you have a retention of about $400 million that goes within the economy because of the subcontracting rule and the fact that they've come together as a pool to face government and whoever's funding them. So it's very important that across all elements within the island, businessmen come together, form chambers of commerce, go on delegations. It's part of doing business. And that's the only way we build capacity.
Well, you heard those nuggets of wisdom. If you're interested in taking your business to the next level about collaborating, making sure you do your research, that means networking and everything else that comes with it. I'm told that we are about to wrap up. I know that was quick, that's what I said. But I want for everyone to do a closeout and just talk about what it is that you feel is the most important thing that we, multiple stakeholders here in this room right now, need to hear from your perspective to help create a much more business-friendly environment here in the Virgin Islands as we move forward. And I'll start with Lindsay.
Thank you again. So what we always say is the least amount of friction, the better. So any way that processes can be shortened, paperwork can be digitized, communications can be expedited, anything that shortens the business cycle would improve the environment in the territory and actually anywhere that you're working. Because friction requires people, and people require money, and money eats into profit.
Got it.
Right? So, from the business perspective, we want to be able to do as much as we can, as good as we can, with as few resources as possible, and that helps everyone along the chain.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. Okay.
All right. For me, I think this is an island with a lot of opportunities. The first important thing is discipline across all the players in the economy in terms of how we go about our business. That if it's world class, it's world class. Not U.S. Virgin Islands standards, it's world class throughout the world. And that whatever we do here should be the same anywhere else. I've harped on it, collaboration, and also looking for partners to build certain areas. You have a great tourist industry. I just saw it coming in. You come to Africa, we don't have a tourist industry. We could come and trade and learn that and give you guys the skills we have in other sectors which you're not so great, and both of us get better at it.
Okay.
So I think collaboration is key across, and most importantly too as well, innovation. Let's have creative ideas between the private sector, business, everybody in terms of moving the economic growth forward, because it doesn't look at color when the economy is booming. Everybody benefits.
Okay, thank you so much. And wrapping us up, Commissioner Alejandro.
Yes, thank you. So I agree with all of the panelists here as we wrap up and have our final thought. But the one thing I would put on the top absolutely is collaborating as a government and embracing innovation. I do agree we have to work towards, and because even the federal government, understanding the rigors of procurement, is working to actually create more fluidity within the spectrum of procurement, allowing us to get the services that we need, moving out of the confines. So not just with one department, but I think as a government, completely digitizing and keeping an open mind to change and innovation will definitely help us, again, to soar to the next level.
All right, I'd like to thank the panelists here today, and I think I'll sum up everyone the last, I don't know how long we were up here, but it comes down to digitization, collaboration, and innovation.
There you go.
Thank you so much.
A round of applause once again for our panel. And Adrian is another one of those who for years I just kept calling her Adrian Williams. Because the Actolin thing just didn't make sense. I know, I've been threatened a few times. But yeah, Adrian Williams Actolin. A round of applause again for the panel. Some very interesting information, and those of us who are in business always look for that opportunity. And I think the name Access Bank is an interesting name, as you can access the money. As we are now approaching our final panel of the day. And they tell me Kevin don't do nothing. All right, we'd like to welcome our final panel of the day. It's culture and tourism relationships. Definitely something that's very needed here in our Virgin Islands, with what our bread and butter is. Let's welcome first our moderator, Roseanne Farrington. Rosie Farrington, Deputy Commissioner of the Department of Tourism. Our Commissioner of the Department of Tourism, Ms. Jennifer Matarangas King. The CEO of Ghana Tourism Authority, Mame Ifua Wajatu. The CEO of the West Indian Company Limited, WICO, that's Mr. Joseph Boshelta. If he stayed say, we'd have said Boshelti. When he home, he Boshelta. And let's welcome the Executive Director of, well, actually, no, we have our Chief Engineer. Let's welcome Mr. Preston Bayer. For years, I've been calling him Preston Dyer. He corrected me today, because even on my little notes, I put Preston Dyer and not Bayer. And our last representative, Mr. Myron, oh, I was calling him Marlon Jackson, like one of Jackson 5, Mr. Myron Jackson, cultural bearer.
Good afternoon to everyone. Sheldon, it doesn't extend high enough, but I'll work with it. Good afternoon again. Isn't this a fantastic summit and an equally fantastic cause that has brought us here together? I am, as Sheldon mentioned, Rosie Farrington, Deputy Commissioner to the Department of Tourism. And this afternoon, before we actually get into the panel discussion with these esteemed guests, I would be remiss if I don't refer back to my travel and the ability to lead as the Department of Tourism's representative on the Ghana West African travel. It has been personally and professionally a profound experience, a lesson in where our love and hospitality for guests and for our own comes from. I had the opportunity, thank you, Mame, for the exceptional welcome and the fact that all stakeholders that we met with welcomed the opportunity for us to return home, but for the exchange in them being able to return to this home, which is also their place. So as we deepen ties and relationships where history, culture, and maritime linkages are concerned between West Africa and the U.S. Virgin Islands, I want to remind us that we share a lot more in common than not. When I visited Ghana, the streets of the market reminded me of what the market in St. Vincent and the Grenadines look like. And as I researched a little further, it's what the markets on St. Thomas and St. Croix looked like at one point. So that reaffirms the fact that we have...
I don't want you hurt your back. You've been standing up, bending over for a minute, so we're going to walk this out.
Okay.
Pick yourself up.
All right. Oh, thank you, Sheldon. Thank you. I think that was Sheldon's cue to tell me let's proceed with the panel. So this afternoon, as I mentioned, we have some esteemed panelists from here at home and from across the Atlantic, all the way from Ghana. And I want to give each person the opportunity to introduce themselves and to say who they are, starting with our guests first. Mami.
Ayiko. The response is Yaye. Ayiko. Yaye. Ayiko. Yaye. So Ayiko means well done. Well done. Yes, I am Mami Efua Wajito. Mami in the Ghanaian parlance means mother, and Efua means I was born on Friday, and Wajito means the gods have settled. So that is the meaning of my name. And if you are Ghanaian or West African, almost every name has a beautiful meaning. We have names like bless, honest, prosper, settle. You know, we have all these names. And when you trace them back, it tells you about our journey. My husband is Wajito, but my father's name is Edu. And Edu, Sechi Edu, means that, you know, when we journeyed, we arrived because of how we settle in Africa, you know. So everybody in Africa has a wonderful name. And most people, when you go to Africa, you may have the opportunity of going through a naming ceremony. And that naming ceremony is a sacred one. Your name tells about you, and your name protects you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we can, Mr. Jackson, right to your left, if you can introduce yourself.
1, 2, 3. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for hanging in here and participating in this very important forum. My name is Myron D. Jackson, former Senate President, served in the legislature for 8 years. Prior to that, I was the director for the Virgin Islands Cultural Heritage Institute, and prior to that, I was the director of the State Historic Preservation Office for Archaeology and Historic Preservation, a total of 40 years of government service. I continue my work in the area of culture and advocacy. Presently, we're working on a museum, civic and cultural center for the territory. It's in the St. Thomas, St. John district. There's a project in St. Croix, a school for architecture and engineering. That's also the sister project to our project, which is to be located at the old Lincoln School, the Jarvis Antonio Jarvis School. So I continue my work in cultural advocacy. As I presented earlier, my family is in the Tumu area of Ghana, the Sasala people. And I continue to be in contact. I've worked in assisting in school development, putting in a well for the advancement of fresh water at a school in the Tumu area. So that's a little about my advocacy and my work in Ghana.
Thank you. And our esteemed representative from the Virgin Islands Port Authority.
Good afternoon.
I think, yeah.
Good afternoon, all. My name is Preston Byer. I am the Director of Engineering for the Virgin Islands Port Authority. The Virgin Islands Port Authority is the gateways to the United States Virgin Islands economy through our airports and seaports, ferry, cargo, and cruise ports. Happy today to speak about the possible connections with Africa, as well as all of the meaningful work that we've been doing to develop our tourism product here in the territory.
Thank you. Hefe.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joe Baschulte. I'm the current president and CEO of the West Indian Company Limited. For those of you who don't know, it's a cruise ship facility right here that has 2 wonderful ships spending a lot of money in St. Thomas today for all our benefit, I hope. But I used to be the former commissioner of tourism during the Bryan administration, Brian Roach administration. So I've been back in the island, born and raised, as Sheldon mentioned, Bushulta, if I'm in the islands. And I'm thankful to have the opportunity to share some of my insights on culture, tourism, what it means to us here in the territory, of course, to our family across the ocean, to Africa. It is always good to have an opportunity to learn and listen to what's happening in that side of the world. A long time ago, I made a trip to Africa, but it was South Africa. And it was very, very eye-opening for me to go there. And I want to close. Since Senator Jackson gave a little 40 years in the government, a little piece of information, he was my first boss way back when in doing the street program. I don't know if Mr. Jackson remember. First boss. So since he said you were working 40 years, I could say he was my first boss. Thank you.
Last but not least,
Good afternoon.
Jennifer.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. Much better. My name is Jennifer Matarangas King. Don't let the last name fool you. I am from St. Croix. born and raised. I am the current Commissioner of Tourism. I took the reins from Joe Bisciotti, who has been amazing in terms of the transition. Happy to say that, with the exception of our guest, I've had the opportunity to collaborate with everyone on this stage, whether it's Port Authority, obviously working very closely with WICO now. But I think there's been a theme throughout the day when it comes to collaboration. And I have to say, while it's great that now we're bringing you here, we have had stewards like Senator Myron Jackson, who has been bringing the message. I've had the opportunity to collaborate with him when he was involved with the 175th Emancipation Commemoration Committee in my former life. And so we have had people who have been bringing the message, but it's now great that you're here and we can collaborate even more closely. So I just want you to know that you have had many of us who have been thinking about the journey and how important it is. And so I just want to acknowledge Senator Myron Jackson for that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And as we delve into the question segment of our panel, I wanted to start with our guest, Mami. And prior to traveling to Ghana, I did a little research, some diligence in trying to ascertain what tourism looks like, what marketing campaigns look like, and of particular interest, and I think it has been one of your largest and most rewarding marketing campaigns, it's a year of return. And I know that started in 2018, and that was essentially designed to invite your global African diaspora to return to Ghana, to invest in Ghana, and to be productive members of the Ghanaian communities. And I wanted to know what inspired the Ghana Tourism Authority to come up with that Return Home campaign, and how has that impacted your tourism?
Thank you very, very much. So we've been through a journey, So we had the Joseph projects that he mentioned earlier. We've had the year of return, and after year of return, we had beyond the return, and now we have the Black Star experience. So for us, it's a deliberate build-up of tourism. And in our country, we, in Africa, I think Ghana has 75% of the castles, the slave castles. And it was very instructive for us to realize that most of our diaspora are from Ghana. So right from the north through to the middle belt, all the way to the south. And gradually it dawned on us that it's important that we meet the diaspora, engage with the diaspora, and let the diaspora understand that they were one of us. Because sometimes the story is mixed up, Like I said earlier, you read some books and it tells you that, the earlier chief sold, the slave trade. It was a trade of people for goods, But it is not entirely true. So we needed to intentionally retell the story. We needed to, open up the space and let the African Americans, the diaspora, those of you in the Caribbean, realize that you have a home back in Ghana. And not only do we want you to come through Ghana to come and experience it, but we also want you to feel at home, buy a home, settle in Ghana, do business at home. I mean, for us, tourism means different. It is not for you to just come and visit and go back. It is for you to come and stay, So our definition of tourism, especially to the diaspora, is very, very different. In any other country, is come visit, have a vacation, and go back. But with us, it is not like that. It is a way of saying that everybody here, belongs somewhere. And that somewhere is Ghana. Ghana is ready to take, that weight of you, to come home and settle. Somewhere in Ghana, there's a place called Asebu, near the central region, in the central region near Cape Coast, where one of the chiefs there literally gave a huge parcel of land to the diasporans and it's free. Anybody who wants to settle in the diaspora could go for a land there, But because it's free, there's been a lot of challenges because anything that is free is not well designed, So now we're looking at servicing the property and making sure that it becomes a proper settlement for any diaspora. Apart from that, we have levels of accommodation where we have the very high end called Sambra. Sambra means come again. Sambra community. We have all sorts of fine homes in Ghana that we would like you to come and see and also invest in. And for us, it's deliberate to make sure that we have all our African Americans, diaspora, Caribbeans come home. Because believe me, everything you do here, the food you eat, the names you have, are all from Ghana. I met a lady who said there's a meal that they make in the Caribbean called tamale. I don't know whether it's here or some other place. And Tamale is a town in Ghana, So it tells you that our ancestors they wanted to leave something for you, wanted to leave something for us to know that, look, you can easily trace your steps back home. Because, we have gari at home, which is a meal, and we have gari here. We have grits at home, and we eat grits. And you eat grits here. We have beans, rice and beans. We call it wache. You call it rice and beans. Pardon me? Peas and rice. Yes. Peas and rice. We say beans. You say peas. Or rice and beans, There is so much that we have in common. So even if your names were taken away from you, if your personalities were taken away from you, the food was something that you can go back to. The language, there are sets. When I listen to Patois, when I listen to some of the African American slangs and all of that, I hear the Ghanaian language. I hear words that are so Ghanaian, So all we're saying is that we want to change history. We want to rewrite the stories. We want you to come back home because you will be welcome and there's a place for all of you to invest. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I have to say that jollof rice, which is likened to our seasoned rice,
the jollof is one of the most popular meals in Ghana.
It is.
Jollof and kelewele. Kelewele is fried plantain.
Yes.
Yes. So that's very, very
So
popular.
there we further can establish the linkages where food and cuisine is concerned.
Exactly.
I'm going to move to your left to Mr. Jackson, who I consider one of the culture bearers where the U.S. Virgin Islands and the marketing of culture as it's linked to tourism is concerned. Listening to Mami express the importance of culture, which is likened to food and history, how important do you think that is to the U.S. Virgin Islands and an integral part of our tourism marketing product as to who we are as a people and a destination?
Thank you for the question. It's a very important aspect of our tourism market. For years, several decades, there have been initiatives that really has a focus on cultural heritage tourism. I think the best model is on the island of St. Croix, through the efforts of not only territorial but federal designation of creating a corridor for culture and heritage, which should also be extended in the St. Thomas St. John district. The aspect of our cultural heritage is really more glorified through our festival arts, which I think everybody's familiar with. We just finished the Crucian Christmas Festival, and we go to really what the name is, the Virgin Islands Carnival, which we now call St. Thomas Carnival. And then we have the St. John's celebration, in addition to all of the other aspects of our festival celebrations, whether they be religious, spiritual, or party. So the festival arts, I think, is the strongest expression of our culture, where the arts, and it's also important that we have institutions that support the promotion of Virgin Islands history and culture. So it's very important that the Virgin Islands Cultural Heritage Institute, which is an arm of festivals, be put in place to support the aspects that we speak of wanting to preserve and passing on to the next generation. It's very simple. If you don't know how to cook good callaloo, if you don't know how to make a good Johnny cake, you don't know how to make a good dumb bread, then we lose throughout. And a next generation will eat what they think is the best, but it's not. So as we go through our festival arts, we begin to see the slippage of some of what was excellence not be so excellence. And that is because we are not teaching, we are not passing on these traditions outside of the home to a next generation. And if we don't do that, that cultural heritage will be lost. So it's equally important, and I know in Ghana, it's incorporated through various aspects of the theater arts in school, which is important. Theater arts is your presentation. If you go to any event in Ghana and you see a presentation, there is a level of professionalism that goes with it, because they spend a lot of time in the theater arts. Likewise, you have the festival arts of making your costumes and so forth. And we've had great debates in the Caribbean, in the Caribbean diaspora, about the loss of our arts through our festival arts of now just wife, bikinis and tongues and feathers. And there's something to say about that, because if we don't return Sankofa to what is the best for us, then we will truly be lost. So I think this is an opportunity where we can link our heritage, which we've had in the past, the African Support Group and the other entities, UCA M20 in Frederiksted, that continues through its efforts of the emancipation activity, the Fireburn activity, the Queen Kasaya commemoration. These are all private entities that have stepped up every year to celebrate the aspects of Virgin Islands history and culture. But culture has to be institutionalized. And I think Ghana could speak to that in reference to the efforts that they do. But it's also ingrained in the societies and the ethnic groups that you come from, that from father, mother, to paramount chief, king, queen, mother, etc., that the arts and the history and the traditions will be carried on from one generation to the next. And the only way we can do that is by example.
Thank you for that, and I wholeheartedly agree with everything that you shared, because as we know, tourism is essentially the lifeblood of many of our economies throughout the Caribbean. And tourism is not just a commercial or something we package. The most important asset we have is our people. And if our people are no longer grounded in a sense of who we are and where we have come from and the journey therein, then we essentially lose the specialness of who we are when we meet and greet persons that come to our shores, and it also affects how we interact with each other. So I just wanted to add, as a Department of Tourism, our Commissioner, Jennifer Matarangas-King, we have just staffed up a great part of our department, which I am really happy and proud to say includes now what we will consider a cultural ambassador who is going to work closely with Department of Education and other community stakeholders so that we can return culture, and not just culture meaning, like Myron, you mentioned, FET, the history relative to our culture and the practices, so that we can continue to hone skills and reinforce the importance of teaching our children from whence they have come so they have a better trajectory in terms of where we go forth. So thank you for that. Commissioner Matarangas-King, what do you think is the future of tourism, and what are we investing now that keeps paying in dividends for years to come, especially where some of these linkages throughout the Caribbean and now West Africa is concerned?
So first, I want to say thank you for giving an overview of some of the things that we're doing. I know Senator Jackson, we've had conversations. I've been in this role for a little bit less than 6 months, and it was a priority for me to have an in-house expert, a tourism cultural coordinator, someone who has been in the community for a very long time, who understands the culture in a very authentic way. For me, when it comes to tourism, people want to have authentic experiences. Sun, Sand, Sea, lots of places have that. That's not enough anymore. People want to know when I go to St. Croix, I'm going to have, whether it's farm to table, whatever the experience is. And for us, on the cultural side, we are culturally rich. And I think what's going to be very important for us is making sure that we hone it. Digital storytelling, I think, is very, very important, because we have culture bearers who, some of them we have lost. Thankfully, we've been able to save their memories, but we also have to make sure that our children understand the things that are important to us, and our habits and our ways and our manners, and how we can keep that going. And so we are collaborating closely with the Department of Education. There's a lot of work to be done, but I think it's a very good start. And I want to make a point about our festivals. We do have 3 ways to Fet, which makes us different. Most places have 1 carnival. We have 3. Each island has its own personality, if you will, but we want to ensure that each of these, whether it's festival, carnival, or celebration, is more than just the parade or the pageantry. It's the food fair. It's all of the things that make us who we are on each island. And so those are some of the things, as we move forward, that authenticity is going to be very, very important for all of us. And it's not just 3 times a year. It's supporting things like the Folklife Festival, AgriFest. These are all different types of festivals that may not necessarily be a tourism festival, but they're events that bring people into our community in a meaningful way. AgriFest is one of my favorite events. It's coming up in February, because it's a chance for you to see everything. You see, the best foods, livestock, plants. You see children and their artistry. Made in the USVI, and I do want to give a special shout out to the EDA. Made in the USVI, we have had a chance to collaborate with them in so many ways. And I want to give this example of how talent, artistry, ties to commerce and tourism. In December, Royal Caribbean Celebrity XL, they launched a program for us in the US, well, for all of their destinations, but ours started in December, where when they come into port, 3 of our artists, artisans, entrepreneurs are on the ship. That's huge. They have a new audience, so we have our talent going out there. They have an opportunity to put their artwork into the world. And I was talking to one of the artists the other day, and I asked her how it was going. And she said, well, people are calling even after they leave, they're ordering more things. So, we have a chance for our talent and what's authentic for us to get out into the world via a cruise ship. So for us, it's all about looking at how can we do things a little bit differently, be even more innovative, but make sure that it's not just, you don't have to necessarily come here. Of course we want you to come, because I want heads in beds. However, even if you don't come here, there's still an opportunity for our talent and our authenticity to make it into the world. So.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm now going to pivot to, I almost said Commissioner Busholti, CEO Busholti. And this question I'd like both you and our port representative to respond to. And I wanted to say, today we focused on tourism, culture, but also cruise. Because one of the things that was repeated after meeting with the Tema ports, after meeting with you and your team, Mami, is the interest in developing the cruise business and relationships and expanding where cruise tourism is concerned. So I thought that it would be profound that we have representatives who are experts in cruise to provide guidance and expert experiences to the Ghana Tourism Authority. So first with you, CEO Busholti, how has tourism from the cruise ship shaped the Virgin Islands over the years? And how do you think Ghana can use tourism, especially cruise, to impact what they're doing in terms of marketing in a tourism space?
Yeah, thank you for the question. The cruise ship traffic for the U.S. Virgin Islands, and mostly until recently, St. Thomas, and now with the work that's been done with the port and Royal Caribbean, St. Croix, traffic has increased fourfold in the last several years. A big part of cruise for us is we don't look at cruise as a zero-sum game. So you have a lot of destinations that look at either your cruise or your overnight guests. We look at it as a complement. So almost, depending on the cruise line, 30 to 40% of the people come back to the destination after their first visit. So it's almost an opportunity for guests to have an opportunity, experience the island, even though it's 5 to 7 hours, and make a decision based on that visit to say, I want to go back and visit it. And part of the reasoning behind it is you get an opportunity to see 3 or 4 different ports in the Caribbean, and every time they come to us, it's a test, right? Because we're going up against our competition as they make the trek down the Caribbean and up to the Bahamas, and they test. And I think one of the things that I like to hear in this conversation is that the cultural pieces are critical in our success, but a piece I want to make sure that we get across for our cruise guests and for the CEO from Ghana is we have to make sure that we are touching the mediums of which people get their news and information. And the people these days, if you're communicating with a 20-year-old and you're communicating like I grew up and listen to stuff, you're going to miss them. So the social media platforms are critical for cruise passengers and what they do and how they do for that Generation Z and the millennial crowd, because that's where they're not only, so like me, I go on social media for entertainment, right? But my kids go on social media for news and information about how they travel and what they do. And I think for us to get the cultural messaging across is we have to continue now to understand this is how you reach the people. So if we try to reach them in our age bracket and we want to know how come it's not resonating, well, it's not resonating because they don't hear the message. Or if they do hear it, that's not the platform that they define as authentic for them to listen to. And to tie it back to cruise, one of the things that we try to do in our ability in marketing the destination is to make sure that we understand who the guests are, why they choose us, and make sure we get the message into them for those reasons. And we hear the same messages over and over. We want authenticity. We want to see real products, i.e. what EDA offers back there. And it is true, but it's true to an extent. And this is what I try to tell people. Pricing and money matters. So if you have a product that says St. Thomas or USVI in Vendors Plaza, selling for $5 that came from China, and you have a product that's made here selling for $30, the majority of people are going to buy the $5 souvenir. Now, we want to believe they're going to buy the $30, but they're not. So we have to make sure that we are competitive in what we do if the messaging is truly to get out and be authentic. And I will close by saying it cannot always all be the government. The government provides the foundation. The private entrepreneurs have to be the ones that are creative, innovative, and take the ideas that Senator Jackson has, that we have, and be able to say, okay, I think I can monetize this and get the message into my group. And of course, then when they make the decision to go on a cruise, they say, we got to go to St. Thomas or St. Croix because they have a lot of the things that I want to see and do because I saw it on social media. And then it all ties back together.
And as you speak of opportunities for entrepreneurship, I know you, Senator Jackson, as you lead the historic tours through our towns, that is a key critical component to visitor experience. Persons coming and understanding the connection, not just between the fact that we are the most beautiful port in the Caribbean, but that there's a history and a story that's tied to who we are. And Mame, there's no coincidence that you're staying at the Hampton by Hilton, because I wanted you to be able to see and experience what cruise looks like from the time the passengers disembark to the commerce that you'll see in the shopping center, to fully conceptualize how cruise works and why St. Thomas, this port, is continually voted as the best sailing, cruising destination year after year. So I'm happy. So I'm going to move to you, our port representative, do you need me to repeat the question or you're good?
No, I think I'm good.
Excellent.
And building off what CEO Bisholte has to say, the thing that we hear time and time again from our cruise partners is that it's an intersection of having the available infrastructure and everything that you need to facilitate those passengers and those ships arriving, but then getting them and connecting them with the activities and with the experiential items that really fosters the desire and the development of that destination. You look through the rest of the Caribbean, you look here in St. Thomas, and the shopping centers and the vendors plazas all around the cruise ports is something that comes from the previous generation. That was an early 2000s development throughout most of the Caribbean. And what we're looking at now is that change in demographic that CEO Bisholte mentioned about the travelers that are coming in on cruise and what they're looking for and what they're looking to experience in a destination. Travelers and cruisers are looking for that authentic, that real experience that really connects them and grounds them to a place. I hear you speak a lot about your opportunities and your marketing measures that you've taken in Ghana, and it really connects quite well with your typical cruiser in this day and age. But it really is about having that infrastructure and ensuring that you can not only take the ships that are willing to come, but that you have a way to connect them into those experiences and into those attractions. I think one of the biggest attractions we have here in St. Thomas is, of course, the beautiful Magens Bay Beach. And if you don't have the infrastructure that connects them to the taxi drivers, and the taxi drivers with the experience to pass along information and knowledge as they're giving tours, you lose a lot of those individuals. The Port Authority has partnered with Royal Caribbean and with local private sector industry to develop training for taxi drivers so that they understand and can connect better with passengers that are coming off the cruise ship to provide them information about the history and cultural significance of the sites that they're seeing. And CEO Bisholti talks a lot about that connection with the private sector. It's one of the things that the Port Authority identified very early on, that as we are looking to modernize our cruise ports, that we need that private sector engagement and involvement in order to really drive us into the next generation of cruising. So we've undertaken a significant effort in which to negotiate a long-term lease for the redevelopment of our Crown Bay district, which serves as the anchor of the Crown Bay cruise port, the Austin Babe Monsanto cruise port just across the way. And again, while on paper, the Virgin Islands Port Authority and the West Indian Company are competitors, we also go back to the cruise market and operate as one port, and how we communicate everything that's coming, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's rates and charges, all of that is communicated as one port. And so even with a quasi-public entity, another quasi-public entity, that we are able to still truly operate as individual companies, but as one port to the rest of the industry. And as you look at bringing in private sector investment and private development, that is a critical facet to ensure that a rising tide lifts all boats.
So you struck a chord when you gave your response. I remember a few years ago, prior to my stint here with the Department of Tourism, the marketing campaign locally with the commercials was, tourism is all a we. So that's essentially the truth. Tourism includes private, public, local community, education, every single one of us, because each of us have an opportunity to make an exceptional visitor experience or to ruin one. So hence the importance, as you mentioned, of training and reinvesting in our communities to ensure that we all understand and embrace the assignment to ensure an exceptional visitor experience from the time visitors arrive to when they depart. So to you, Mommy, and we're gonna have to, I can see that we're losing our audience, and I can see that we are right in between our little cocktail reception hour. So we're gonna be brief, and then we're gonna nicely wrap up. Mommy, how has traveling abroad improved your tourism perspective, as well as your perspective as an African? And how are you using that to inspire people to come to Ghana or return home for that experience?
Thank you. So for me, in the past, at Ghana Tourism Authority, we used to visit a lot of exhibitions, travel shows to, market Ghana and all of that. But ever since I became the CEO of Ghana Tourism Authority, I changed it slightly. I now use culture to market Ghana. So we go places, talk about our culture, actually take, some of our people there. Like I'm talking about food, we talk about clothing. So we have food fairs, gastronomy fairs, we have fashion shows, we have theater. And one of the biggest theater that I am introducing to the United States is the Mansa Musa story. I'm sure some of you must have read the Mansa Musa story. It's a great story of Africa. How wealthy we were as Africans, And I think that the Mansa Musa book is a book that most of you must have read in school. So it's easier to relate to. And we're bringing this theater. Honestly, it's a Broadway show. It's huge. And that is what we're taking to the World Cup, for instance, And we plan to bring it here to US Virgin Islands as well. Just so that we are not just sitting with a mic telling our story, but we are performing it on stage. We're telling people who we are, how we express ourselves, you know. So even though it's a Mansa Musa story, that whole performance is based on music, culture, narration, and all of that. And it makes it unique and beautiful, and it tells you about who an African is or who a Ghanaian is, because we sing to express ourselves. It doesn't matter what the occasion is, whether it's a good occasion or a bad occasion, we sing to express it. So our theater has a lot of singing, expressing every moment, every feeling of it. We also have drumming and dancing, you know, and that depicts the energy we have as a people, you know, and every move we make when it comes to dancing has a meaning, you know. So these are things that we carry along when we are visiting countries, and we explain to people who we are, how we do it, and the meaning of our identity, the meaning of us, and especially, you know, what we stand for. Because if we came here and we did Adwa, for instance, I'm sure you'll be familiar with Adwa, the Ashanti Kingdom dance, Adwa. And Adwa is a royal dance. You know, it talks about a town, and it's all done with action. I mean, you know, so when somebody's doing Adwa and does this, you know, and does that and that, you know, so it says, this is all mine. It is divine, and is given to me by the heavens. You know, so we express ourselves in a lot of dance and music, and we're bringing theater into it. So we tell our story differently from what anybody will tell their story, you know. So we're taking advantages of various platforms, be it the World Cup, be it coming to USVI, for instance. I mean, we're coming with culture, we're coming with theater, we're coming with made in Ghana products, and also we're looking at a situation where we can do proper cultural exchanges, you know, where you get to understand us and we also get to learn something from you. And, you know, I know that in schools they may teach a thing or two, but there's nothing like having the real people there telling you their story. So in a nutshell, yes, my traveling abroad taught me that, look, it's not enough just going for exhibitions. It's not enough just standing somewhere and telling people that Ghanaians are the most warmest, friendly people. Ghana, honestly, is a beautiful country. I travel a lot and I still say, you know what, there's nothing like Ghana. I love my Ghana. I love my Ghana. I mean, for me, it is, you can compare it to anything in the world, you know. We have great hotels, great restaurants, we have beautiful heritage, we have beautiful culture, we have beautiful people, beautiful clothing, and our music is something else. You know, I went to Memphis, you know, and Memphis was telling me that, the tourism minister in Memphis was telling me that, oh, jazz music emanated. As soon as he started, I said, it's from Ghana, it's from Africa, you know. So our music is also very, very dear to us. And we are able to communicate all of this on a platform. So our music, our food, our clothing, and of course, the Space Ghana is a beautiful one, and we are proud to always market it. Thank you.
So I can attest to the beauty and the splendor that Ghana has to offer because I experience it. But I would like to ask you this question prior to your departure so I can see how this experience being here tomorrow, you'll be on St. Croix, has further enlightened your enthusiasm to return to Ghana and strengthen the linkages and the ties that exist between USVI and Ghana. I'm excited for that. So I'm going to pivot back to you CEO Bosholti, and then I'm going to ask one final question that all of the panelists can respond to. I'm getting the signal to wrap it up. So, as a two-time WICO president and captain of the cruise industry, what do you think should be practiced in Accra, Ghana, as they attempt to develop a cruise destination? What are some of the key fundamentals for them to embark on that journey to develop cruise as a part of tourism?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think the first thing would be who you believe would be the customers for the cruises, whether it be the people of Ghana or the diaspora or the Europeans that travel over or the Americans. Because I think a good example is the cruise business that happens in the Caribbean and the United States is very different than the cruise business that happens for China. So in the Asian market, the Chinese are the ones that travel on the ships in that space. So very little people outside of the Chinese market. So the food, the language spoken, the employees are all of the place. And in the Caribbean and in this part of the world, the cruise industry caters primarily to Americans and then to others around the space. So there are people from all over the world that cater to the guests, and it's set up around labor costs and other functions. But that would be the first thing. And then the second thing would be, from a cultural standpoint, do you believe the people of Ghana want to be in the cruise business? Because that's the second piece. So, people in the space know whether or not you're in the business because you think you have to be in the business, or you're in the business because you want to be in the business. And I think for us in the USVI, we're in the business because we want to be in the cruise business. And I've been to other destinations that do it because they believe that it's a means to keep some of their people employed. And I think it's reflective when you go to the place as to what you get. So those would be the two pieces I would give as
excellent. And a key component to the Ghana delegation's travel in Accra was that tour of Tema. And I was just absolutely blown away to see the level of commerce and the actual footprint that they have already prepared to expand into the cruising to increase the portfolio. So there is an existing footprint, and I think, as you said, needs and feasibility study to really ascertain if this is the direction that your people would like to pursue. I think that is very, very important and critical to the development of the cruise business. So I'm going to start with you, Commissioner Madarangas King, and each of the panelists, you're going to have an opportunity to answer this question. For you, Mame, it will be specific to Ghana, but for the Virgin Islanders who are here, this is specific to you. As a Department of Tourism, we spend a lot of time marketing in the Northeast of the United States. Obvious reasons. We saw the interruptions in travel, the snowstorms. So it's a natural synergy for us to say when it's cold there, it's paradise here every day. So what are the things that you think would be attractive to international travels, i.e. in particular those in Africa, that we can add to our portfolio to encourage travel for Ghanaians or other African nationals to explore the USVI, and vice versa, from the USVI to Africa?
So I will say, I think with the current geopolitical situation, that's the best way I can put it, I think everyone is being more intentional about their travel. Where am I going? I think the governor mentioned it. What will they think of me? When I go someplace, can I learn something about myself or my family? I find myself as I travel, I'm more intentional about the businesses, whether it's a Black-owned restaurant or businesses. And I think many people are really thinking about that. And so I think for the diaspora, and definitely as we're thinking about where we're going, will it be a meaningful vacation? Can I learn something about myself, about my history? And so I think many people are thinking in that way, as we see other things going on around us. And so I think this is a prime opportunity to really think about our heritage. I know many people are looking into it and thinking, you know, rather than me just going someplace else to just relax, maybe this is a great opportunity for me to go learn. As you mentioned, you went to Ghana and all the things that you saw, and it really inspired you. And I think more and more people, not just people of color in general, are really thinking about how they spend their money, who they're spending it with, and why. And I think we need to take advantage of that. And I think that's a great opportunity as we talk about the USVI in Ghana, that connection already. And I think that's where we should be thinking about in terms of exploring.
Excellent, thank you. Bashalti?
Yeah, only what I would add is I think it's important for us as we continue to move into building relationships with Africa and Ghana and West Africa, is that we figure out who in our community, like Myron Jackson or other people, have information that would allow for people to learn more about us, understand that there is a connection and has been a connection for a long time. So when they come, there's a level of familiarity if they truly research and see. And then secondly, I think as importantly is we have to be comfortable enough to reach out to people in the diaspora that are closer to the U.S. Virgin Islands than Ghana itself. So I'm sure that Ghanaian, I don't know how you say it, Ghanaians that are all throughout the United States that are in the same Northeast that have populations that say, you know, we have a linkage and a connection, but you get an opportunity to experience it because you're only 4 hours away and not 14, or I don't know how far Ghana is. I haven't been there. But I think it's a long way away. And I think if we do that, then the message will trickle back to Ghana to say that the family members have been here and you should make a trip. Like, I'm sure you're going to take the message back.
I think that's a very important point that you've made, because when we speak of Ghanaian travelers, are not just those who are in Ghana or other parts of West Africa. You have a huge diaspora in the continental U.S. And those persons, just as we heard from you, Commissioner, Governor mentioned, people are looking for experiences that resonate home. And I believe that in the U.S. Virgin Islands resonates, the experience resonates for many, a feeling of home, of familiarity, and it restores hope as we look at the social and political climates nationally. It restores hope that we have a beautiful utopia that exists in paradise where they can call and consider home. So our port representative, take it away.
So from the Port Authority's perspective, I think one of the things that we have on offer is connectivity. You know, we, through our airline partners, the Department of Tourism as well, have been developing additional route offerings throughout the Caribbean and really serving as a focal point and connectivity to the rest of the islands down island. That connectivity is an opportunity. It's served that the U.S. Virgin Islands can serve as a starting point or a finishing point in a longer trip that somebody takes. We don't need to be the end-all, be-all and the only destination that somebody is coming to see when they take that journey. And you see this all around the world as gateways really become that starting point and that finishing point for somebody to travel between. And with the infrastructure that we have on offer, again, echoing some earlier presentations, the 10,004, and I never forget those 4 feet, the 10,004-foot runway that we have at the Henry Rolson Airport in St. Croix, we have that opportunity to serve as that connection to the rest of the Caribbean from elsewhere around the world.
Excellent. And I think of, in tourism, we talk about multi-destination travel. So a lot of the relationships we have with, for instance, Cape Air and now Contour Airlines, that we have opportunities for travelers to fly here to St. Thomas or St. Croix, hop over to Anguilla or Nevis, or go as far down to as Dominica and other regions. So you have the opportunity, like you said, we're not the final destination, but we can serve as the destination that creates a segue for persons to experience the rest of the Caribbean. So that's an excellent point. So Mr. Jackson, allow you to answer that, and I'll bring it back, end it with Mame.
Okay, very well. I do think that we can benefit by just telling our story and doing it well. The Virgin Islands has always been an international place of a society connected to the world. That's why we sit in this middle of the Caribbean Atlantic Ocean. We sit in the middle of the Greater and the Lesser Antilles. That's why the United States purchased these islands, because of its proximity to the Panama Canal and for other military purposes. And that is why when anyone comes to our port, the first thing, our ports, they tell you, this is a beautiful place. This is a vortex of just exceptional grace and beauty. And it is incumbent on us that in our planning tools that we make sure that what we seek, what we love and seek to preserve is preserved, and that there is balance. So telling our story is one. Making sure that our cultural space is the best that we can do in terms of the resources that we have. Making sure that our cultural heritage is the best that we have to offer, and that is also customer service and training. Virgin Islanders and others who come here, how to handle or how to be a diplomat, a cultural ambassador of sorts, not only for the visitor, but for ourselves. We also have the ability to use this rich heritage of this foodways in so many aspects, and you see it in St. Croix and St. Thomas and St. John. I just had the seafood festival in St. John I went to the other day. I didn't know we had such a thing. And I live there. So the coquito, the callaloo, now we're doing tartoise. What's a tart? We've had Vienna cake was, etc. So our foodways speak to these crossroads and, language traditions and our music. There is no reason why Quail Bay and that should be a major aspect of our presentation of who we are as a people. That's second to none. I want to just share this story and I'll end here. I went to the African Museum for History and Culture, and after I did my tour, I went to the gift shop, and when I entered the gift shop, they were playing Stanley and the 10 Sleepless Nights. And I went up, I asked for the manager, and I said, I'm from the Virgin Islands, and I'm really just very happy to hear the music of my home country being played. And he said, we love it. He said it took a while, but even the staff, and when people come in, they want to know, what is that music? What is that sound? And I said, would you like to speak to Stanley? And I picked up the phone and I called Stanley, and they interacted. And Stanley and the 10 Sleepless Nights, but Stanley is a national treasure of heritage. I don't think we understand to the extent what we have in the Virgin Islands and what we should celebrate and preserve. And I end here with that.
So before you pass the mic, Mr. Jackson, we spent some time, just a quick segue, because I think this is important as we speak about ancestors and culture and our identity, is to briefly touch on spirituality. And as that also serves as a key component to not just us interacting, as you mentioned, with visitors, self-love and love for each other, and how that can further enhance who we are and what we offer, what makes us special and unique as a people. Because I know also one of your beautiful hats you wear is also where grounding and spirituality is concerned. So I think it's important to share that.
Well, yes, spirituality is very much part, and I think in all that we as African people, our spirituality is out there. It's through the roof. And I say that whether you be Christian, Muslim, Jewish, traditionalists, Buddhists, etc. And the Virgin Islands has been a melting place for all. And that's what makes these Virgin Islands so unique. That is why our tolerance for others is so great. That's why our humanity for others is the way it is. And I believe similarly, Ghana, it has its similar traits. We are Ghanaian people. We are West African people, not limited to. And we brought our spirituality of our humanity with us. And it's to understand that. When we take time, dress, and go to a funeral here in the Virgin Islands, it's similar to going to a funeral in West Africa, Ghana. And likewise, when the whole importance of godparents and the role of godparents in a society, to foster and to nurture and to uplift that particular child through the societies of rites of passages. That's spirituality. The manner to which we open our mouth and greet each other in the morning, whether you say grand rising now or good morning or good afternoon, it's an act of humanity. And if we lose those tenets, then we lose our identity and who we are as a people. And that is why the preservation of one's culture, yes, it's ever-changing. I'm not professing that 1860 and 1930 and 1955 and etc., that's how we should live. We should use all that we have and to celebrate it to the best that we are. And we can do better. And this is a forum that connects us to our historic past, where they are also struggling with these similar discussions in their society, but also have preserved aspects of it through tradition, through their spirituality. And we could learn from that. So go back and fetch it. Thank you for the question.
Yes, thank you. And last but not least, to our very special esteemed guest, Mame, would you like me to repeat the question? I know it's been multiple persons prior to you. So as a Ghanaian tourism authority, you spend a great amount of time marketing in your niche markets. What are the things you think would be attractive to international travelers, whether in Ghana or in the United States, your diaspora there, to encourage and actually add to your portfolio to encourage travel between USVI and Ghana or your diaspora in the United States?
Thank you very much. Let me start by saying that tourism is about experience and memories, and it should be beautiful memories. It's all about tourism infrastructure, tourism infrastructure. And in Ghana, for instance, our major visitors to Ghana are from Europe. They are more interested in the wildlife than our neighbors. Nigeria are very, very, very interested in our music, our dance, our people. So, and of course, the African Americans or the diasporan are also interested in heritage and culture. So it's quite diverse, everybody and what they come in for. And lately, people are even coming in for our special traditional marriage, how our marriage is done. So now we are even promoting marriage as a tourism scene because of how it is done. I mean, we have colorful kente and everybody dressed the same, and it's just beautiful to see. So even that has become a tourism activity, So yes, we have a number of products. I mean, apart from our food, apart from our culture, which is food, music, clothing, and all of that, we also have the heritage sites. And I think that for the diasporan, we have this one that we call the last bath. Okay, and the last bath is so significant to every diasporan because that was the last bath our great ancestors had before they were deported, abroad, So that is, and that comes with religion, like you mentioned. It is so religious. When you get into that river, you would hear sounds. It is. You can speak to an ancestor in that river. You can, depending on how religious you are, you can connect to that. So we have beautiful products. But let me come to, I haven't spoken about the cruise yet. So let me just end with that. Apart from all the beautiful tourism attractions that we have, the cruise is also a very important one for us. We used to have the Black Star Line, which is no more there, but we have the Princess Cruise. We have a number of cruises coming to Ghana for pure tourism purposes, and certainly we have good products that they come in to experience. That is heritage, culture, and it depends on who is coming, like I said, we have all these beautiful things. So I'm going to encourage you, for instance, that when it comes to cruise, it is something that Ghana and the Virgin Islands can really market because it's something that is really catching up in Ghana and people are ready. People actually travel. I mean, they do cruises from Ghana to other places. So that is something that Virgin Islands and Ghana can cooperate on. Another thing that I would like to mention is that in a year, we have about almost 2 million tourists coming to Ghana, and we have a revenue of about almost 5 billion, and we keep growing. But we have developed a special product, and this product is for the middle-aged people and the youth. And these are various concerts that we do around Christmas. Same as you say, Virgin Island is the paradise for you to come and experience when it's cold. We also say, come to Ghana, come and experience a festival, a music festival. And that is huge in Ghana. It started by, we call it Dirty December. And now we have refashioned it and we call it December in Ghana. Because a few people were saying, why Dirty December? But believe me, for the youth, it caught on. Yes. It caught on. It was a space for them to come and enjoy. Meet the biggest music celebrities that they will ordinarily will not see here. We have them in Ghana, come to perform. And they would like to get in touch with these people, they would like to perform. And of course, when you come to Ghana, I mean, when our youngsters come, for them, the adventure is different. They make friends. Some even find husbands and wives, So yes, we have so many things that we can do between Virgin Islands and Ghana. And I believe that for the two countries, our biggest asset is creating jobs through tourism. And I believe that creating jobs through tourism is key for us as Ghanaians and for Virgin Islands. And I think that is one area I would like us to look into and develop further. Thank you very much.
Excellent. And thank you to all of our exceptional esteemed panelists. I think as we summarize this afternoon's panel, one of the key things that we can take away is the importance of collaboration through partnerships and being rooted in and grounded in culture. And culture essentially stands for who we are as a people, historically speaking, who we are as a people based on our practices, our norms, our mores. Those things essentially identify who we are. And having experienced Ghana and proudly calling the U.S. Virgin Islands my home, I can say culturally, there's so many linkages that we're all really excited to explore. Before we wrap up, after my travels to Ghana, I came back and I was profoundly moved. I couldn't quite verbalize what or how I felt in terms of that spiritual shift. And I wrote a love letter to Ghana, and I just wanted to share a few paragraphs. I'm not a poet, Myron, but it's just, it encapsulates my experience and how I felt. It says, "O Ghana, cradle of suns that rise in defiant gold, land where drums remember every heartbeat that ever dared to keep going. I write to you with hands trembling from gratitude, from wonder, from the memory of standing on your soil and feeling something ancient whisper my name. Motherland, you welcomed me with an embrace older than time itself, a warmth woven from the laughter of children, the grace of elders, and the pulse of a people who have carried the weight of centuries and still rise crowned in dignity. Your energy, alive, unbroken, unstoppable, wrapped around me like a promise I have been waiting my whole life to hear. In your presence, Ghana, I remembered why our resilience runs so deep in our bones. For more than 400 years, our people were forged in fire meant to consume us, shadows meant to silence us, injustice meant to break our spirit, yet we stood and we still stand. Unyielding, undaunting, lifted by a resolve the world still struggles to understand. You remind us that rising is not just what we do, it is who we are. Thank you. Thank you for those who stayed.
A round of applause for our moderator, Rosie Angelo. Because that was some poem for someone who doesn't write. That was lovely. I could hear you guys could hear the drums in the background, boom, softly in the background. So a round of applause for our panel, our moderator, Rosie Farrington. We had on the panel Jennifer Matarangas King, Mame Efua Wakatu, Joseph Bochelta, Preston Bayer, and Myron Jackson. A round of applause for them all, please. Again, that brings an end to today's activity and function. We have a meet and greet outside mixer that Kevin has been waiting for some time. He's up and ready, and I'll let him come on up. I'll let him let you guys know about what's up next. Mr. Kevin Rodriguez.
Good afternoon. I know this has been a long day, but I just want to thank each and every one of you for coming out today. Our team, where's my staff? Okay, come on. This was a collaborative effort. No man is an island unto himself. And you have to stand here too. Joanne. Small but mighty. Yes, we were small but mighty. And so, one of the things that I think is one of my greatest strengths is when I'm asked to do an assignment, I do it to the best of my ability, and I kind of get a little carried away. But when the governor first asked that we needed to go to Ghana on a trade mission, he gave me that assignment. And it was tough. It was a lot of work with Joanne and I, and Rosie as our consultant. But we made a difference. When we went to Ghana, we left a mark there. We know in the newspaper they were saying we went on vacation and we did all sorts of stuff, which, you know, you don't have to pay attention to that. But we did a great job, and this is the fruit of our labor. Today was a testament of the fruit of our labor. When we were asked to do this assignment, we went there and we made a difference, and we brought the fruit of our labor back. And this continue to forge. We're going to build this relationship, economic development, trade, culture, and shipment. And so I just want to thank each and every one of you. This is Tanisha, my assistant. This is Cheryl, my executive assistant. This is the what do you call you? Our co-coordinators. These are my co-coordinators. I want to thank each and every one of you for assisting.
He wouldn't be honest, but this is the one who whipped the fire on him.
Yes.
Give this to you to say
Thank you. Thank you.
beautiful trip to Ghana.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Come take a picture with us. Oh, yeah, Joanne. Oh, did I introduce Joanne? And Joanne also. Come on. One more. So let's enjoy the, and I want to thank all the presenters also, but let's enjoy the mixer. Hey, how you doing?
How is your brother?